Wargaming is treating Polish destroyers way too harshly in World of Warships. But why does it matter, Silent? Well, for me it does, because I'm Polish and it triggers me so much seeing things like Gdańsk being printed into the game and, well, look, this is a big Polish destroyer made of 15,000 what ifs, and the actual ones that existed are made of premium and borderline nobody remembers them. Pan-European captain, being also Polish captain, is just made to like perfectly fit Haaland and nothing else. You cannot really run him on Gdańsk or Ragnar because, well, it's borderline useless. I don't know why Wargaming hesitates so much, knowing that Polish Navy actually had a lot of pretty good ships that wouldn't be really that problematic to put into the game. And to make example of this, I'm actually gonna present you my idea of or proposal for whole DD text tree that would be better placed instead of the Gdańsk text tree made of entirely of Polish destroyers. So Polish Navy was always balanced between East and West, mixing styles of France, Great Britain, and later on the Soviet Union. So I want this text tree to kind of reflect on that. And before we go into balancing of the text tree, I want to present you my handpicked ships for the whole branch. And we're gonna go over their armaments, what they're gonna look like, and what actually the ships are. First, I want this text tree to start with a tier 5, the Orpe Oraugen, which doesn't really sound very Polish because it really wasn't, but well, ship was designed as French, then it was in Royal Navy, and then it was in Polish Navy, and then it was returned to French again. Ship is basically a Barascu class or something more of a Jaguar. It is armed with 130mm guns times 4 and a very mediocre AA guns 13.2 and 37mm. It also had 3 550mm torpedoes, so not really that many of them, but well, they were pretty bigger caliber. For tier 6, I want to see Orpe Wicher, ship that was based on like base of the previous class, so it will actually fit. It was kind of based on the Oraugen. It's still armed with 130mm guns, but it has a little bit better AA of 13.2 times 4 and 2 times 40mm, so slightly upgraded. Also, it had more torpedoes of the same caliber, so it had 6 550mm torps. Basically, upgraded Barascu class, like I said. For tier 7, we can either stick with the what we have right now, which is the Orpe Grom, a sister ship of Błyska, or we can go for Orpe Burza, which I think would fit a little bit better, as it was also armed with 130mm guns. It also had a little bit better AA. It had the 40mm AA guns and 20mm AA guns. It had the same thing on in terms of torps since the 1929, and this is the version I kind of want to go for, even though the version from 1942, which had only 3 torps instead of, well, 6. It had a little bit better AA. For tier 8, I would want to suggest Orpe Piorun, which is a DD that is something like Jutland, Lightning, and Jarvis come together. It was armed with 6 120mm guns and 1 102, so kind of like what we have on Orpe Orkan. It had a lot of main battery and a secondary. It had 1 torpedo tube times 5, 533mm top, so we already go a little bit down with the torpedo power, but we have significant upgrade in terms of main battery, and we have 40mm times 4 AA guns with support of 12.7mm Vickers. This ship also had a radar, so we can actually think of making it like this, but we're gonna go to consumables a little bit later. For tier 9, we already had presented ourselves Błyska 52 from Wargaming. They made it recently that they want to add more Błyskas into the game. It would be the same thing as we have right now on Błyska, because this ship is still in service actually. It's a museum ship in Gdynia, and it has 8 102mm guns that are, well, Soviet, with actually pretty good AA guns as well, 4 times 40mm and 4 times 20mm. It has only 4 torps in one tube, 533 only one torpedo tube as well. So you have only 4 torps, 533mm. Those are actually French torps on Soviet mounts, which is funny. This ship is also, or since it was retrofitted many times, it had as well Soviet-based radar. But what is most importantly, I don't want some French what-if thing on a tier 10 like we have right now with the ORP Gdańsk. I want something that actually existed, which is the ORP Warszawa. ORP Warszawa was, well, Soviet DB that basically was a smaller version of Neustrashimi. We already have Neustrashimi in the game. It's really not that broken DD on tier 9. And what I want ORP Warszawa to have is, well, 130mm guns, just kind of like a Lucian kind of style place. You have double 130s in 2 mounts. So you have 4 130mm guns. You have 1 tube of 5 torpedoes with the same 533mm caliber like we had before. And what would this actually ship also have is a lot of ASFW, since this ship historically was a very good in terms of was very well armed in terms of ASFW. In terms of AA, this ship had 45mm AA quadruple barrel. Later on, ORP Warszawa was retrofitted to having missiles, but we're not getting into the missile territory. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about the balancing and the design philosophy I want for this texture. First of all, I kind of want this texture to be just like the Gdańsk right now in terms of, well, having radars. But I want to approach this topic a little bit differently. For lower tiers, since we already have well, established Barascu class ships, they can be kind of copy-pasted. Pretty mediocre to weak AA with okay-ish guns and torps with good alpha but not really that much range. You're also not getting a lot of them, so it's not that big of a deal. In terms of overall performance for the whole tech tree, I want them to be close to mid-range fighters, mostly mid-range fighters, not really long-range pokers like we have with Kleber. I want the guns to feel very good in terms of handling, so I don't want to give them like US or British floaty shells. I want them to have something between, well, standard and the French flat ones. I want them to have both AP and HE ammo. However, I want to make the AP very much not a practical choice. Kind of like what we have with Petro, that has very good AP and bad HE. Right here, I want the situation to be reversed a little bit with very good HE shells, with good fire chance. Błyskawica already has upgraded fire chance, by the way, on tier 7, and it's just a coal ship. And the AP being kind of a situational pick. The torps should have enough range to be fired stealthily, but not really the greatest pick. You don't really get many of them as well, so it's not that big of a deal in terms of balancing here. The key factors are gonna be concealment, consumables, and obviously the AA. From tier 8, we're getting ships that actually get all of those, because, well, you get something that looks like Jetline and Lightning. It would be stupid if you give them concealment of a Khabarovsk. So I want them to have pretty good concealment, kind of like what we have with Orkan right now, which has 7.5 kilometer radar that lasts 20 seconds and like 5.8 kilometer concealment. And I think that would be a great baseline for balancing the remaining ships with radar. 7.5 kilometer radar but a little bit longer sounds, in my opinion, much better than what we have right now with Gdańsk having 9 kilometer one, but it lasts 10 seconds. It would also allow you to actually approach DDs that are very much stealth DDs like Shima and gun them down normally, or get into the bad position by, well, rushing a gunboat that's gonna get to you in the close range. Remember, this is supposed to be mid-range fighters, so you get room for a correct place and the incorrect ones. I don't want to give them what Orkan has, which is heal, and giving them smoke on top of that would just make them the best DDs in the game. What I want to propose is, well, since tier 8s get the radar, I want to give them a possibility of having a smoke screen or a normal heal. Not super heal, normal heal. And hear me out, you either are gonna go like brawler style and go fight and spec close range and, well, use the heal and radar to your advantage, or you go something mid-range and you pick smoke screen and a radar. It's not that long of a radar as well. It's 20 seconds, 15 seconds. It can be balanced between those. And you're gonna get something that can deal with bigger gunboats. Remember, those ships are not gonna have the French saturation, so it's not really that durable as well. In terms of AA, I don't want to give them any defensive AA, I just want to give them a standard, well-performing, accurate DD AA with, well, something of a daring would be okay baseline for it, as well. It's still kind of the same guns, and for like tier 9 and tier 10, since they get the Soviet AA, I want to give them Soviet AA values, kind of like what Grozovoy has, but without def AA, it's not gonna be as effective as the Soviet one. So in summary, you would get DD branch that kind of wants to fight close to mid-range with usable radar, usable guns, weak torpedoes, but it's not like they are not existent, and mediocre AA. Also with a lot of flexibility choices. I would also want to say that I kind of want them to have, well, good ASFW, and this could be having both the Haaland thing and the normal one, kind of like Smolensk has from tier 9 or maybe even only on tier 10. It's not like those ships are aimed with hydro or anything, it would be just like radar, maybe engine boost and heal slash smoke to choose from. It would also kind of fit the Soviet theme, having to choose between smoke and heal. And it would also give well, Świrski, special pan-European Polish commander, place to be on the gunboats, since, well, we're gonna have pretty decent AA, so if you actually shut down 20 planes with it, you get buff. So you actually get some use out of it, not like we have with Gdańsk right now, that shooting down 5 planes would be actually challenging with it, since it doesn't get any range on the AA. So in summary, you would get a ship line that would have place to be good at and place to completely potato. Because if you pick a wrong place to fight, you're gonna get yourself absolutely blasted. I also want to mention that I don't want this stage to have access to range mod, to make sure that it stays between 12 to 14.4 kilometers of range on main battery, depending on the perks you actually use on your ship. So no 16 kilometer Kleber thing, no. 14.4, which is the maximum range of, well, what Błyska can achieve. should be ideal for this game. It would still let you farm from outside of the secondary range of most battleships in the game, and kite cruisers at well decent range, but it wouldn't allow you to just well sit and farm from basically spawn. And it's not like we cannot make branch don't have access to consumable. Just look at Khabarovsk, it cannot mount range mod at all. Also would fit the flavor. Just saying, this is not some leaked info or anything. I would really want to see something like this text tree happen in the game, and I want to hear your opinions about it. And if you have any questions, well, say so. It's just throwing ideas around, right? But I think having to play some actual historical ships on a tech tree would just feel much better. And for all the Gdańsk lovers, I had an idea of what could Gdańsk actually be in this game if this tech tree were there instead. Gdańsk, imagine Gdańsk, a ship that is kind of like what if this happened ship, like multiverse theory ship, could actually be a dockyard. It was never built. I mean, the Mogador class was, so like we could just make it as like fictional event. Like what if we built this D from the French dockyards, and we could even slightly buff it. It would provide a little bit alternative playstyle to the regular tech tree, having only HE and like being a little bit further in terms of range, but it would still fit the theme of this. Hell, we can even place like Orca Orkan in the middle as mid reward or something like this. It's not like we cannot really make it, right? So if you guys think this kind of idea that I've presented for the Polish tech tree and generally Polish ships in the game would be fitting or wouldn't be fitting that much, say so in the comments. I would gladly engage with you in the comment section and talk a little bit about this topic. Anyway, see you guys next time. Silent out.